The word psychic actually means of the soul, with it being your soul's natural way of sensing energy. With the great news being reconnecting as well as strengthening your psychic abilities just takes practice. So in this video, I'm going to go over the top 7 most common psychic abilities here on Earth currently at this time. The first psychic ability, or really a grouping of these abilities together, are the clairs, which include the inner senses. So we have our physical senses, obviously, and then we also have our inner senses, which go with the clairs. So first is clairvoyance, very much connected to our third eye and that ability to see into things. This is also seeing into others just as much as it is seeing into the other realm. You're able to perceive images in your mind's eye. This can also be seeing auras or seeing actual beings or the inner workings of the universe. It's almost kind of like just having your own picture show going constantly in your mind at all times, or your ability to tap into it when you would like. Now the next clair is clairaudience, and with this psychic ability being able to hear or perceive sounds or noises not in this physical reality. It's also when you hear your name being called or just hear little voices or noises. It can also happen really fast. You just walk by a certain location and then you just hear something. You just hear your name. Oftentimes, spirit guides will call your name just to get your attention or gain your awareness or to raise your vibration. Not hearing with your actual ears, but hearing from your inner ears. It's usually very quick until you can meditate with it and really sit with it and be calm with the voice to understand where it's coming from, and eventually carrying on a conversation with the entity or the being that is trying to get your attention. The next psychic ability is Clairsentience. And this is the ability to perceive emotions coming from the outside world as well as people. This also leads into empathy and just a sense intuition. So be somewhat overwhelming with all the emotions, just being surrounded by them, feeling them, and them just kind of like coming to you. And depending upon how permeable your soul is, meaning a sponge, how much can be absorbed and come in and go out with you, either being conscious or unconscious of it, can really determine how overwhelming these emotions can be. And oftentimes why drawing boundaries or even cleansing the self can help release a lot of those, because become a sponge and kind of like absorb them, and they need to be released and then have boundaries so it doesn't affect your health. This also goes into the realm of the seer. Through the emotions and that being a strong gift, you're able to see into not only the emotions of others and the psychological states of others, but just see them on a feeling intuitive level, which is a little bit different from clairvoyance in terms of just how the images come about and just perceptions. Clairsentience, it might just be a little bit hazy, also kind of connected with claircognance, which I'm about to go into, the just clear knowing, where clairvoyance is literal like pictures, almost like a movie screen. So though they're very similar in nature, there are distinct differences in the perception of psychic information that is coming through. Next is claircognance, which is clear knowing. And with this ability, it's literally a clear knowing. It's hard to put your finger on why you know it or how you know it, but you just know. At the core of your being, things are just apparent and you just know. Either knowing the truth or knowing certain information or etc. You just know. And it's just a constant state of always with you, always being there that you can tap in. Also, it's just a knowing you need to do this or go somewhere at this time. It's always leading or guiding you, and you follow it because you're so in tune with that part of you that just knows, and it usually ends up being very beneficial. So the second psychic ability on this list is channeling. Now, with channeling, there always seems to be some controversy, and there's also 3 known stages of the channeling process, with the first being probably the most controversial. And it's reasoning because through that process of channeling spirit or information from the other side, it is also being filtered through the human lens. And this also can leave room for things to be misinterpreted through this process, where unlike the first mentioned psychic abilities where these things are coming to you, with channeling, it's almost information coming through you, but also it's being filtered through the mind and the ego, which can sometimes taint the information and can leave it maybe not as pure, and therefore leaving things up to interpretation. Regardless, we're still human, and it kind of allows the information to be persuaded perhaps by the own human way of thinking or human way of thoughts or doing things or already perceived notions. So this kind of leads to some controversy in its type of psychic ability and with its basically amount of trueness that is coming through. Now, like I mentioned, there's 3 stages of channeling, with the third being called embodiment, which is probably the most trusted or at least the more accepted way of channeling, but it is also the more rare way of channeling. And it's through this process that the mind goes completely silent to push aside their human self for the being or spirit to come through and be channeled through them. And through that process, the spirit actually embodies their physical body, with it actually being able to move the individual's hands or move their head, their eyes, as well as them actually being able to talk through that individual. Now, usually the spirit or being on the other side that is working with this process is usually an ascended master or some higher type of spiritual being that is capable of carrying out this process to begin with, as well as the individual. So this is what makes it more on the rare side, because the individual also has to be biologically capable of this type of channeling or prepared for this type of channeling. Otherwise, there can be distortion. Well, the third psychic ability is energy healing, which is another form of channeling, which uses the universal life force. And instead of coming through the mind, it's coming through the body, usually the hands, to help heal the planet, yourself, as well as others. It's most commonly used in Reiki, also known as laying of the hands, where those particular individuals that have developed that psychic ability to such an extreme that they're literally able to lay their hands on others, animals, whatever the case may be, and it literally transforms that particular entity, making it either healed. This is also where you would see individuals laying their hands on people who were blind or deaf, and they were able to, once they would remove their hands, able to see again as well as hear. Same goes for ailments. If they had cancer or some type of disease, they would also be able to heal that just by laying their hands and channeling that energy. So the fourth psychic ability is automatic writing. Also another form of channeling. This one more channeling of the higher self. It's clearing that ego, that mind, and then just letting the higher self flow through you. It also provides a lot of guidance, and most commonly when you're journaling, this is the form of psychic ability that it is tuning or tapping into. Now, even though the higher self comes through the strongest, you're also able to channel the spirit realm as well through automatic writing. It's great for clarity, and oftentimes looking back on some of the stuff that was channeled or that was written down, individuals don't even remember writing that or what was said or what was going through that process, because they were in such a meditative state and removed from themselves to an extent where it was really able to, those energies, those higher energies from across the veil were able to really flow through and pick up more information. It's also one of the more easily able to develop psychic abilities because it comes so naturally just through writing or journaling. With done consistently through practice, can be developed rather quickly. So the fifth psychic ability is precognition, which essentially is the ability to foretell the future, or at least see a potential timeline and how it can manifest. It's also not completely set in stone. With precognition is every moment is really creating and dictating your future and your reality, literally with every second and every choice that you make in that second. So with precognition, it's really that probability, seeing how a current timeline could carry out, just with the sheer fact of how that energy is shifting and changing in every moment. So even with that, you can give multiple timelines and multiple ways in which that could manifest. It's really that psychic ability to tune into energy patterns and then be able to predict the outcomes. So as long as that energy pattern stays that way and that individual stays on that course and that way of thinking, etc., then the probability increases. But for example, if they take a detour and maybe do some healing, or that could completely change the outcome. So precognition really hinges on free will and that power of choice. We also see precognition usually sent as a form of warning. It always reminds me of Phoebe from the TV show Charmed, where she'd always get these visions of the future that were generally warning her this was about to happen if you don't XYZ stop this demon. So it can also come in the form of remembering things. So remembering a particular item before you leave the house, coming to find out while you're out you needed that item. So it's just little ways in which it can make life easier, as well as predict full-on ways in which the future can manifest depending upon those energy patterns. The sixth psychic ability is astral projection, and this is projecting your consciousness out of your body with the ability for it to travel wherever it desires. And it happens a lot when we sleep, we just don't remember. It also comes with stories of hovering over your body or that out-of-body experience, and worked with actively start to leave your body and walk to another room, or you can also send it to a specific location. This is also kind of where remote healing comes into place to an extent. Now, the seventh and a final psychic ability that I will be mentioning in this particular video is telepathy. Now we've seen with individuals a more strength in this ability, with us being able to be more telepathic with each other. It can even extend into thought forms of the collective conscious. And we see this most commonly in a popular idea. We notice particular themes pop up with, it's an onslaught of individuals who are really promoting that particular theme or thought or whatever the case may be. Usually that's coming from a higher source, but permeating into the collective consciousness and those who are tapped in or tune into that part of themselves and can bring that down into the physical world. We also see it as a way in which it keeps us evolving as individuals. So first and foremost is setting the intention to develop your psychic abilities. Second is releasing fear. Fear is a very dense emotion. It can really keep things heavy, where the more you incorporate lightness or just faith or belief. Also, fear keeps the mind dense. It can create blocks from your soul to the other realms and can make it challenging for that to flow more easily. So the more that you bring in lightness, things that you really enjoy doing, lightening the situation or the mood, it helps to dissolve those blocks or that fear, that denseness, and it raises the vibration, just overall helping you to connect with across the veil. Thirdly is drumming. Drumming really helps bring you into that rhythm, and it can be great for channeling, really all areas of psychic ability, because it's working with a frequency and getting you in tune with the other frequencies of the other realm. The fourth one is working with your senses. Not your physical senses that we're most aware of, but your internal senses. We have our physical senses. Our soul uses its psychic senses, and those are the ones that we want to tune into. Minus vision, because vision, of course, we want to work it into our third eye and not actually seeing things in the physical, but training ourselves via our internal lens. So to help tune in to the psychic senses, it helps to bring yourself into each moment. This means while you're eating food, to how does the food taste? Really being completely involved in that moment helps to not only what we just mentioned, you become more aware of just what's around you in general. Also sensing different subtlety, just basically bringing consciousness back into your body. The touch, that really helps with sentience feeling, and then being aware of the noises, the surroundings, that really helps with the audience of it all. That being said, I hope this video is helpful, and until next time.